Hello and very warm welcome to GS School. My name is Prabhat Kumar and this is the series on NCERT History Class 6. Today we will read the fourth chapter of this book. Before I start the class, let me remind you that the first three chapters of this book has already been uploaded on the channel. If you have not watched it till now, then it's a humble request to you to go and watch it. The link has been given in the description box. If you like my video series, then like the video, subscribe my channel and also share with your friends. If you have any question regarding the class, put it down in the comment box. Now we start our chapter number 4, What Books and Burials Tell Us. One of the oldest books in the world, Vedas. You may have heard about the Vedas. There are 4 of them. The Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajur Veda and Atharva Veda. The oldest Veda is Rig Veda, composed about 3500 years ago. The Rig Veda includes more than 1000 hymns called Sukta or well said. These hymns are in praise of various gods and goddesses. 3 gods are especially important. First is Agni, the god of fire, and the second is Indra, a warrior god, and the third one is Soma. Soma is a plant from which a special drink was prepared. In Rig Veda, there are more than 1000 hymns, precisely speaking 1028 hymns. These hymns were composed by sages or rishis. Priests taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence bit by bit with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught and learnt by men. A few were composed by women. The Rig Veda is in Old or Vedic Sanskrit, which is different from the Sanskrit you learn in school these days. The book we use are written and printed. The Rig Veda was recited and heard from generation to generation rather than read. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed and printed less than 200 years ago. And the other Vedas, Samveda, which it deals with musical notes and chanting, and the third one is Yajur Veda, deals with rituals and sacrifices, and the fourth one is Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda deals with spells and charms. Look at the figure. This is a page from a manuscript of Rig Veda. This manuscript of the Rig Veda on birch bark was found in Kashmir about 150 years ago. It was used to prepare one of the earliest printed texts of Rig Veda as well as an English translation. It is now preserved in a library in Pune, Maharashtra. Each of these Vedas further divided into 4 parts. First is Samhita, that is collection of mantras. The next is Brahmins, which is rituals. And the next is Aranyaks. Aranyaks talks about the theology and meditation. And finally you have the Upanishad or Vedanta, which is philosophy or the concluding part. Vedanta means the end of the Vedas, that is concluding part of the Vedas. Now we talk about the Sanskrit and other languages. Sanskrit is a part of family of languages known as Indo-European. Some Indian languages such as Assami, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri and Sindhi, and Asian languages such as Persian and many more European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian and Spanish belong to this family. Other languages used in the subcontinent belong to different families. For example, those used in the northeast belong to the Tibeto-Burman family, and Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam belong to the Dravidian family, and the languages spoken in Jharkhand and part of central India belong to the Austro-Asiatic family. Now moving ahead, cattle, horses and chariots. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda for cattle, children and horses. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in battles, which were fought to capture cattle. Battles were also fought for land, which was important for pasture and for growing hardy crops that ripened quickly, such as barley. Some battles were fought for water and to capture people. Some of the wealth that was obtained was kept by the leaders. Some was given to the priest and the rest was distributed amongst the people. Some wealth was used for the performance of yagyas or sacrifices, in which offerings were made into the fire. These were meant for gods and goddesses. Offerings could include ghee, grain, and in some cases, animals. Most of men took part in these wars. There was no regular army, but there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters of war and peace. They also chose leaders who were often brave and skillful warriors. Let us know about the some words which were used to describe people. There are several ways of describing people in terms of the work they do, the language they speak, their communities, and their cultural practices. Let us see some of the words used in Rig Veda to describe people. There are two groups who are described in terms of their work. The first one is Brahmins, also known as priests, who performed various rituals, and the second is Rajas. The Rajas were not like the other ones you will be learning about later. They did not have capital cities, palaces, or armies, nor did they collect taxes. Generally, sons did not automatically succeed fathers as Rajas. This means that there were no such rule that the son of Raja will be the next ruler. And the two words were used to describe the people or the community as a whole. One was the word Jana, which we still use in Hindi and other languages. The other was Vish. The word Vaishya comes from Vish. You will be learn more about this in chapter number 5. Sometimes the people who composed hymns described themselves as Aryas and called their opponents Dasaj or Dasyus. These were people who did not perform sacrifices and probably spoke different languages. Later, the term Dasa or Dasis came to mean slave. Slaves were women and men who were often captured in war. They were treated as a property of their owners, who could make them do whatever work they wanted. Burials and megaliths. Burials were big stones which were used to mark burial sites. These were carefully arranged by the people. The practice of erecting megaliths began about 3000 years ago and was prevalent throughout the Deccan, Northeast, and Kashmir. While some megaliths can be seen on the surface, other megaliths burials are often underground. Sometimes archaeologists find a circle of stone boulders or a single large stone standing on the ground. These are the only indications that there are burials beneath. All these burials have some common features. Generally, the dead were buried with distinctive pots, which are called black and red ware. Also found are tools of weapons of iron and sometimes skeletons of horses and ornaments of stone and gold. Finding out about social differences. Archaeologists think that objects found with a skeleton probably belong to the dead person. Sometimes more objects are found in one grave than another. In Brahmagiri, one skeleton was buried with 33 gold beads, 2 stone beads, 4 copper bangles, and 1 conch shells. Other skeletons have only a few pots. These findings suggest that there was some differences in status amongst the people who were buried. Some were rich, other poor, some chiefs, other followers, like that. Sometimes megaliths contain more than one skeleton. These indicate that people, perhaps belonging to the same family, were buried in same place, not at the same time. The bodies of those who died later were brought into the grave through portholes. you can easily see in the figure, this type of megalith is known as a schist. Some schists, like the one shown here, have portholes, which could be used as an entrance. Now we study a special case at Inamgaon. Inamgaon is a site on the river Gond, a tributary of Bhima. It was occupied between 3600 and 2700 years ago. Here, adults were generally buried in the ground, laid out straight with head towards the north. Sometimes burials were within the house. Vessels that probably contained food and water were placed with the dead body. One man was found buried in a large four-legged clay jar in the courtyard of a five-roomed house. The house also had a granary. The body was placed in a cross-legged position. How you can differentiate between the skeleton of men and women? Because there are no major differences between them. Sometimes people decide on the basis of what is found with the skeleton. For example, if a skeleton is found with jewelry, it is sometimes thought to be that of a woman. However, there are problems with this. Often, men also wore ornaments. A better way of figuring out the sex of a skeleton is to look at the bone structure. The hip or the pelvic area of a woman is generally larger to enable childbearing. These distinctions are based on modern skeleton studies. I want to share with you an important fact about human bones. About 2000 years ago, there was a famous physician named Charak who wrote a book on medicine known as the Charak Samhita. There, he states that the human body has 360 bones. This is a much larger number than the 200 bones that are recognized in modern anatomy. Charak arrived at this figure by counting the teeth, joints, and cartilage. At the same time, around 3500 years ago, we find some of the first evidence of writing in China. These writings were on animal bones. These are called oracle bones. Why these are called oracle bones? Because they were used to predict future. Kings got scribes to write questions on the bones like would they win battles, would the harvest be good, or would they have sons. The bones were then put into the fire. Because of the heat, the bone cracked. Then the fortune tellers studied these cracks and tried to predict the future. These kings lived in palaces in cities. They amassed vast quantities of wealth, including large, elaborately decorated bronze vessels. However, they did not know the use of iron. Well, that's it from me. If you have any doubt regarding this class, put it down in the comment box. And if you like my video series on NCERT, please like the video, subscribe the channel, hit the bell icon and share with your friends. This gives me a positive energy to upload more and more videos. See you again next time. Thank you.